Oh boy, obviously this video that Daniel Haqiqatjou put out is controversial, so I'm going to put my 2 cents into the mix. If you haven't seen the video, which I don't know how you found me if you haven't, I actually don't encourage watching it. No, I'm kidding. Go watch it if you're feeling sadistic. Essentially, it's a video about a 2018 migrant protest that Omar Suleiman and others went to. Just as a bit of context, this protest was against the Trump administration and ICE, who are kidnapping and placing Hispanic immigrants into concentration camps in such poor conditions where many of them died and others in critical conditions. On top of that, Central American refugees were fleeing Central America and into Mexico and the US seeking asylum. Does Daniel mention this anywhere in the video? Of course not, because he doesn't care. Well, I'm getting a bit ahead of myself. Today, I just wanted to show some moments in this video where Daniel exposes how incompetent he is, and some clips that maybe went under the radar. Lastly, before I show you, if you want to know my view on the whole event, I'm going to mention it here. Obviously, you should watch the whole video, but there you go if you were wondering. With that said, let's begin. Bismillah.
Yasir Qadhi came out and wrote a post and said whoever criticizes Omar Suleiman is an armchair critic with 0 qualifications.
Yes, take a look at this post. He only shows it up for a few seconds, but this post right here is so indicative of the whole ordeal. Daniel makes it out to be that Yasir Qadhi is just like, oh, don't criticize him. If you are, you're a nobody. Essentially making out that Yasir Qadhi is in full support of it. No, actually he's not. If you read the post, you can see that Yasir Qadhi talks about how there were issues in this event and that people aren't free from guilt or criticism. What he's saying, which you conveniently didn't underline, is that legitimate criticism is one thing, but trying to pick out flaws and either blow them out of proportion or invent flaws is what makes you an armchair critic. That you don't know what it's like because, and I quote, will inevitably get their hands dirty and do things that some will agree with and others will disagree with. Maybe the reason why Daniel felt like the armchair critic label was directed at him is because he knows he's in that camp. Because for the bulk of the video, he is.
Look at this picture. Those who have been desensitized by the amount of filth that these woke imams put out will say, so what? There's nothing wrong here. He's just kneeling.
So what? There's nothing wrong here. He's just kneeling.
But those of you who still have some ghira for the deen of Allah will recognize the problem with the optics of a prominent imam on his knees, and standing above him are priests and rabbis wearing rainbow scarves, singing about love. What does being on your knees represent? Christians get on their knees to pray.
Technically, Muslims also get on their knees to pray as well. Daniel, have you ever done salah? Do you know what the tashahhud is?
But other than that, kneeling is a sign of humiliation and lowering yourself.
Daniel, listen to your accent. You're American. You of all people know that in the United States, kneeling is used as a sign of peaceful resistance to an organization or ideology that you deem to be oppressive. Daniel, I know you know this is how it's used because it has been major headlines for years. The reason why you're saying this is because you want to win brownie points. You want to say that this is shirk because the only person you should be kneeling before is Allah, which is obviously not what this is about. This is like saying Yusuf alayhi salam's family all committed shirk because they did sujood in front of him. This is just an example of Daniel's slimy deception. He knows this is not what it's about, but he wants to win points with his Salafi friends.
If Omar Suleiman wants to come on Muslim Skeptic Live to talk to me publicly about his actions, he's more than welcome to do so.
Why won't Omar come on to my podcast? What's funny is that in the same video, he claims that Tahir Wyatt, yes, that Tahir Wyatt who taught in Medina, is going on a smear campaign against him. I mean, this is delusions of grandeur. Regardless, the image he shows is of the Young Smirks podcast, which when you go to the video he's mentioning, scroll down and you'll see, what? What's this? The Young Smirks invited him on to hear his side, but Daniel refused.
So if you watch footage of this faithful protest, you'll notice that there is a lot of singing. They're basically constantly singing these kinds of gospel, spiritual songs.
We won't be silent anymore. Our people, somebody's hurting our people, and it's gone on far too long. We all know it's gone on far too long. Come on, It's gone on far too long. Oh, somebody's hurt.
Billahi alaikum, does this sound like a gospel song? Somebody's hurting our people and it's gone far too long? You'd think a gospel song is about Jesus or God or I don't know, the church. Does this sound like a gospel song? No, because it's not. It's a song that was made against a coal company in North Carolina spilling coal ash into the water supply. This isn't a gospel song. This took me less than a minute to look up, but again, Daniel doesn't care. He wants to continue to perpetuate this idea that Omar is a mushrik, and he's saying he's singing gospel songs would fit right into it, even though it's not.
A lot of young women singing loudly about love and freedom and liberty and all this kind of liberal stuff.
I mean, how dare they? Women singing about love and respect? Are you serious, Daniel? Daniel's the type of guy to unironically proclaim?
If she breathes, she's a fuck!
This brother starts singing Tala al-Badru alayna, which is completely inappropriate. This is a song that the Ansar sung for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to welcome him to Medina.
So inappropriate, right? Protesting against human rights abuse against migrants by singing a song that the Ansar literally sang towards the Muslim refugees that sought asylum in Medina. Muhammad was literally a migrant. Of course that's appropriate. Can you name any time where this would be less appropriate? This whole event is about migrants. But Daniel claims,
and this was the main deal. This was the main show, to bless the migrants. To bless the migrants.
It's more so about being against concentration camps. This miskeen thinks that because religious figures are there, that it's supposed to be a religious ceremony. Maybe they're religious leaders because this is a humanitarian crisis. You yourself agree that religious people have more care for people than non-religious people. You did a debate against an atheist about morality. Ya Senor Roxana.
You might as well just send your kids to the nightclub and get it over with. Honestly, you just might be better sending your kids to the nightclub or the dance club than these kinds of protests. If this protest is sunnah, then the dance club is sunnah too.
Do I even have to talk about this? I mean, it goes without saying that Daniel has
lost the plot. Not only is he silent, not only is he not preventing them, he is standing there silently with the priestesses, with the rabbis, with these kinds of transsexual biblical rituals that are being committed.
What's a transsexual biblical ritual? I'm really curious. Is this what they're doing here? It's just verbal diarrhea. Cram in as many buzzwords to get those Salafis triggered. Transsexual, biblical rituals,
LGBT priestess, LGBT priestesses, LGBT priestesses, LGBT priestess, LGBT priestess, LGBT priestess. Notice how the footage that Omar Suleiman and his friends pushed out on social media did not include any of this footage. They released a highly sanitized version of this protest. This is dishonest and it's deceptive because it's deceiving the Muslim community into giving Omar Suleiman the benefit of the doubt and thinking that what he's promoting and what he's doing is actually Islamically legitimate when it's clearly not.
Maybe it's because he realized that there were some things that happened at the event that he doesn't want to promote. Did you ever consider that? That the reason he didn't show these things is because he doesn't want to send that kind of message, that those certain actions which he left out were things that he doesn't approve of. If you actually watch the video his team put out, it was about standing up to injustices not only in his own backyard because he lives in Texas, but also against the exact same things that the US-backed Israelis are doing to Palestinians. Maybe that's the message he wanted to put out, and not that you should be participating in rituals. The final wrap-up of this whole video goes back to Sheikh, I know you hate that word, Sheikh Yasir Qadhi's post. Of course, I disagree with a lot of what happened here. There's no doubt, was this protest handled in the best way? Of course not. Do I think Omar Suleiman wishes it turned out differently? I'm sure he does. As Yasir Qadhi said, you don't know what's going on in these types of things. Sometimes you have to get your hands dirty in order for a big cause. Obviously not saying there's a maslaha or excuse or anything, but it's just reality. Not everything is ideal. Daniel constantly, throughout the video, appeals to the hadith about if you see an action, stop it. But where was Daniel when people were being put in concentration camps? This was an injustice towards people in his own community. And where was Daniel? Exactly, at home whining about the LGBT community and crying into his Yaqeen cup, which he got when he used to work there. Daniel's content is the lowest of the low, and anyone who knows should be able to see what the intention was here with this video. Go cry and say, oh, you're just a Omar Suleiman fangirl. Oh, you're just a Yaqeen bot. Shoot, I wish I was a bot being paid by Yaqeen. Asadullah Ali slammed you and you'll continue to get slammed. Stay mad. Wassalamu alaikum.
But am I really obsessed